You were right. You were right. You were gonna make me mad with your hot take. You told me that off
Yes,
air, and
I
I was
did.
like, "There's no way that I'm gonna get mad," and I'm mad. Now I'm
I
mad.
knew, I knew, I knew you were gonna get mad. I was like, this is a personal attack against Connor.
Welcome back to the Popcorn in the Face podcast. I am your host, Matt Iorio, and I am with my co-hosts today, Connor Busella and Val McDonald. We are discussing the 2011 movie Moneyball for today's episode. And before we dive into our categories and our usual discussion, I'll provide everyone with just a quick plot synopsis to refresh some memories and get the ball rolling. After Major League Baseball's Oakland Athletics lose in the American League Divisional Series to the New York Yankees in 2001, the team's general manager, Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt, realizes he can't compete against the league's richer teams. Heading into the 2002 season, he seeks to revamp his roster after three of his team's stars leave for big contracts. When negotiating with Cleveland, he stumbles upon their general manager's advisor, Peter Brand, played by Jonah Hill, a young recent college graduate who uses sabermetrics to scout and analyze players. After discovering they mutually agreed that the current methods of baseball scouting had become outdated, Beane buys Brand from Cleveland to help him execute his new vision for how to keep Oakland competitive with a small salary payroll. Beane and Brand focus on maximizing their team's on-base percentage over historically valued skills like base stealing, defense, and batting average. They acquire undervalued players like aging David Justice, injured catcher Scott Hatteberg, played by Chris Pratt, and unconventional pitcher Chad Bradford. As Beane implements his new system, he clashes with the scouting department and his team's manager, Art Howe, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who refuses to play Beane's newly acquired personnel for his own preferred, more traditional players. The A's perform poorly, eventually losing 14 out of 17 games early in the season, with the team struggling. Beane and Brand then mastermind a few midseason trades to force Howe to play their guys, which kickstarts what becomes an AL record-breaking 20th consecutive win streak. Despite the success, the A's lose yet again in the first round of the postseason, this time to the Minnesota Twins. Beane is then offered a $12.5 million contract by the Boston Red Sox, a then professional sports record contract for a general manager. Beane almost accepts the offer, but is persuaded otherwise by Brand showing him a video of a minor league player hitting a home run and not even realizing it, and listening to his daughter Casey's rendition of the song The Show. As Billy Beane best said, it's hard not to be romantic about baseball. Now that we have our quick refresher, just some quick facts before discussion. As I said before, this movie was released on specifically September 23rd, 2011. It's directed by Bennett Miller. It was written or co-written by Steve Zalian and Aaron Sorkin. And it was based on the book Moneyball, The Art of Winning an Unfair Game by Michael Lewis. And some other quick notes. It received 6 Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Film Editing. And lastly, it scores a current 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb. Now that I've done a bunch of talking, I'll open things up. And as per usual, we will discuss, what are some of our first viewing experiences with this movie, some of our first memories, just some general thoughts on this movie as we start to get into things. So I will kick it over to Val first.
So this was actually my first time watching this movie officially. It's been on my watch list for years. I've maybe caught like 10, 15 minutes of it on cable, like flipping through channels, like at somebody else's house, whatever. But I've never actually sat down and watched it until this week. So yeah, this was my first experience. I watched it by myself in my living room and really enjoyed it. I was locked in. It was not what I expected in a couple of different ways, and I'll get into those
Mhm.
later. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was good. I enjoyed the everybody's performance in it. Like I thought it was a really well done movie, and I'm glad that I can finally say that I've seen it.
I'm glad you mentioned that this is your first time really sitting down with it and getting to see it, and that you'll talk about that stuff later, because that was going to be a second question on this for what this experience was finally actually having seen it all the way through, but I can let you get to that later. How about you, Connor?
I missed this one in theaters. Really wish I had gotten to see it there. This is one of those movie trailers that I probably watched 100 times on YouTube before it came out. I was really excited for this movie to be released. And like I said, I missed it in theaters, but watched it several times on DVD and on cable pretty much every time it would come along. Watched it a number of times with friends in high school and in college, several watches. And it's one that I revisit. Maybe not every year, but every couple years I'm giving this one a rewatch. And like I mentioned, the trailer is one that I've seen a bunch of times. Watching this movie yesterday, it's funny how many scenes from the movie that you're immediately transported to watching the trailer. There's several moments in the movie that are so cemented in my memory of watching that trailer over and over again. But love this movie. Had a blast watching it again. It's such a great ride going along with Billy and the Athletics.
It's interesting hearing you both talk about your first experiences with this and your experiences since coming back, at least for Connor, because I feel like we're all can kind of be put on a spectrum where me and Val are on opposite ends and Connor kind of falls in the middle, because I don't really remember the trailers to this like you did, Connor, but I vividly remember seeing this in theaters in 2011. And I remember kind of being at a point where, and we've had separate discussions about this outside the podcast, like around the time in my life where I started viewing movies and movie making differently, like kind of coming into a quote unquote kind of adult viewing lens. And this is one of those first two movies that really was kind of making me look at things differently and something I could appreciate as I was getting older, where I probably wouldn't have felt the same way about it as if, say, I watched this at like 12 instead of I was 17 at the time. So I did see this in theaters. And as always, I checked my movie stub tin, and this time I brought it. Oh, that's not the backside. We got the Pokemon tin. I don't want to flip it too much because I don't want everything to spill out. Oh, there that goes.
There it goes.
And
there goes the other guy's ticket.
Still no other guy's ticket. But I did find my Moneyball ticket, which I'll put this up for those that might see the video.
Nice. We got the proof.
Yeah, I got the proof. So I saw it Sunday, October 2nd, 2011 at 4 p.m. So I do remember seeing this, and it resonated with me so much at the beginning when I first saw it. And to kind of go on a little story tangent, I initially had enrolled in college to go into journalism, to be a sports journalist. I love the sports world. And I had kind of partial aspirations to get into pro sports in some way, not playing. It was definitely not athletically talented enough to do that, but to get into like pro sports, like business operations. And there's at one point too, I transferred schools because I thought I wanted to switch my major to sport management. But back when I first saw this movie, I watched Billy Beane's character be a GM, make these trades, make these moves, pull the strings behind the scenes. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And I'll circle back in a little bit and tie in something else too. Some more kind of, baseball lore, my lore, or whatever. But this really sparked an interest in kind of the behind the scenes stuff. And there was a while where I thought I wanted to work my way up to being a general manager of some sports franchise. But yeah, my first experience was in the theaters, and it's stuck with me ever since.
It's funny that you say that because I feel like everybody has a movie that they saw in high school that just resonated so hard with them, and that they wanted to like make like career, like life choices like based on a movie that you saw in high school. And I feel like I have a few of those. I know Connor does, so it's funny that that you said that because I feel like everybody's got at least one. So that's cool that this is that one of those ones for you.
Oh, for sure. We will now head into our trivia section, which is our first of our 15 usually planned categories. And I will send this over to Connor for trivia. And this can be any trivia bits, just any information that we have for each other, any questions, whatever you got, Connor, for trivia.
So I didn't prepare a trivia question for the group like I normally would. But I found one cool piece of trivia in my research for the movie that not only was the movie originally to be directed by Steven Soderbergh, but the Jonah Hill part was originally to be played by comedian Demetri Martin. And I just think it's a really weird thought to see this movie under a different director without the rewrites and with a completely different supporting actor in that role. I think it'd be a vastly different movie, and I'm kind of glad we got the version that we did get. I think this was a amazing turning point for Jonah Hill's career with this, and then next year's Wolf of Wall Street, getting back-to-back Oscar noms, really changed the trajectory of his career. But it kind of would have been cool to see Dimitri Martin. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he is very, very funny.
Dimitri Martin is a interesting guy to see now, like written that he was attached to this movie initially. So I feel like I haven't heard from him in so long. But at that time where like I was late high school, you were in the middle of high school, Val was coming up end of middle school, that was really like his time that he was
Yeah.
a well-known person in the public eye making things. I remember him being funny and really talented, and he kind of just dropped off eventually. And I've heard over the years of just how talented he was. So it's really weird we haven't heard as much. So it's really weird. It's like it's a weird time capsule seeing his name and seeing him initially attached to this.
No, definitely.
How about you, Val?
So I wasn't sure if this was better for like IMDb deep dive or not, but I have some like notes about just like the multiple different like screenwriters and directors. I'm sure we were going to get into this at some point, but you kind of like started the conversation about it, Connor. But as I was like researching, basically it was like it took a lot to get to the current team
For sure.
that we have for this movie. So I can just kind of like run through some of the things that I had here. So Sony originally bought the rights to Moneyball, and Stan Chervin was hired to write the screenplay, but this was his first ever screenplay, and he was taken off the project pretty quickly. Don't really know what happened there. But then Steven Zalian as the writer and David Frankel as the director came on, and Zalian had like a pretty good track record at this point. He wrote Schindler's List, Gangs of New York, a couple other like notable pieces at the time. And then Frankel had directed The Devil Wears Prada and Marley and Me. So like kind of a good team coming in. But then Frankel, he ended up leaving the project, but I think before he left, he was the one that kind of like started talking to Brad Pitt about starring as Billy Beane. So Frankel's gone. He left the project. And then at this point, Steven Soderbergh comes in and he took over as the director. And it kind of like made sense. I feel like at the time, like he was an Oscar winner. He had made Ocean's movies with Brad Pitt. Like it made sense. And then when he was involved, then Pitt got involved on board to play Beane. But then I guess like Soderbergh had like some really weird ideas for this movie. I don't know if you guys came across this like in your research, but he had some weird ideas. He wanted to make it kind of like a pseudo documentary, maybe some like animated characters. Like he had some interesting thoughts that scared the executives over at Sony. So they decided to put the movie in turnaround, and then it was eventually taken out of turnaround. And then Bennett Miller was hired to direct, which was also kind of an unusual choice because he had only ever really done Capote of like note. Like that was like his only like main work, which like, yeah, so I don't really know what happened there, but it stuck with him. And then Aaron Sorkin was brought on to work on a new version of the script, and that kind of got us like the current group that made this movie. But I was like, oh my goodness, this movie was like brought through the ringer in order to be made. It was back and forth and all these different people on board. So yeah, that was very interesting reading through some of that stuff.
I'm really glad you had mentioned that, brought that up, kind of what both of you were saying too, because I had noted that about some of the things that went on behind the scenes and all the hands and, you know, passing of hand through different hands to be made. You were talking about the turnaround period. I saw that it was, I think, sent into turnaround by Sony like 8 days, like literally 8 days before filming. And they, over the creative differences you talked about, like there was a late script rewrite and different things. And then eventually when that happened, Soderbergh left, like you had mentioned. Then with some of the kind of different things he wanted to do with the movie, like you mentioned, the semi-documentary kind of aspect, and I'd read that he wanted to feature real interviews with the actual people and have a lot of the real people like play themselves. And as much as I love a good sports documentary, that's very much my wheelhouse. Like knowing what this movie is now, I can't imagine it any different. So I'm really glad it didn't go that way. And I'm also glad you brought up Bennett Miller, because while researching this, I'm like, oh, you know, I've seen that name, whatever, but never really thought about him extensively. And so just reading up on him, it's kind of incredible. Like you said, this was his second like real movie. And his filmography is really short. He did a documentary in 1998. He did Capote in 2005. He did Moneyball, obviously, in 2011. And then he did Foxcatcher in 2014. And he's done nothing since.
That's it.
He's done
Yeah.
4 movies, 3 of which are like, narrative fictional movies, not a documentary. And those 3 all got nominated for several Academy Awards, or like really critically acclaimed movies. And according to like his filmography now that I can find out in the internet, he has some movie with a TBD like release date for the future, but not even like a name or anything or a title. So he's really done like 3 movies ever. And somehow he got picked for this after doing 1 movie.
Yeah.
I don't even know how he got Capote. They must have just taken a chance on him.
Batting
Yeah.
1,000 though.
Literally, though. Speaking of good baseball,
I had forgotten that this movie had Aaron Sorkin as one of the writers. I didn't do any of my research until after I had watched the movie. So during the credits, when his name popped up, I was like, oh my God, that totally makes sense. I had forgotten that. And you can kind of feel his fingerprints on this movie with some of the father-daughter relationships and some of the snappy dialogue and the
absolutely
in the offices, the GM wheeling and dealing, all of that felt very Sorkin. And I did have another piece of trivia that when Sorkin did the rewrite for the screenplay, he stated as a condition that Steve Zalian, his name would not be removed from the credits because his draft was phenomenal. Sorkin loved his draft, and he didn't feel like there was much to improve upon, but he did do a rewrite of that. So that was his big condition, was that both of their names would be listed.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel like a lot of times you hear of kind of writers fighting for writing credits. So it feels kind of unusual for him, and a good unusual for him to be like, no, like keep him attached to this. He really did the bulk of this.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely covered with like the production history was definitely a piece of trivia that I wanted to bring up. There's other nuggets and stuff I think I'll sprinkle throughout this episode going through, but 2 quick trivia facts that I had prepared, which maybe you've come across, maybe not. The first was the actor, Stephen Bishop, who played David Justice, had actually grown up idolizing David Justice. He was a real-life baseball player, the actor, and when the real David Justice played for the Atlanta Braves, this actor was playing for the Braves minor league affiliate at the same time. And then years later got to play his idol in a movie, which I thought was really cool. And then the second piece of trivia I have as well was Chris Pratt was initially told he was too fat to play Scott Hatterberg, and he took 3 months to lose 30 pounds and then was able to win the role, which I had kind of wondered about weight loss, just because I know he's a guy that there's been a lot written about like his fluctuating weight through various roles. Obviously in Parks and Rec, he had kind of more of an average build, and they kind of build him as being kind of pudgier, which I guess is like, your 2010 version of pudgy, which is really just very normal average build. And he was kind of just this little kind of schlubby guy at times. And then, you see the dramatic weight loss for when he got into Guardians and got into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And in this, like, he was in obviously pretty good shape. And like baseball players necessarily aren't like absolutely ripped and lean. They'll have big muscles, but they kind of are just stockier guys. They really, for the most part, need more power, whether they're throwing or batting, versus like speed and that leanness. And obviously they got to run bases and stuff, but a lot of their game's power. So you don't see a lot of that kind of like leaned out look. But he's noticeably thinner and leaner in this than he was like in his first 2 seasons of Parks and Rec, which would have come at the time of this movie's release. He probably would have been into season 3 at that point. But I kind of wondered like how he was tweaking his weight going back and forth from the shows, because usually they kind of wanted him to be a little heavier in Parks as his character. And it really wasn't until later seasons of Parks where he references his weight loss when production overlapped with production of Guardians, and he really had to get in the superhero physique.
He stopped drinking beer.
Yeah, that is the dieting secret right there.
That's all there is to it.
Exactly. But yeah, those were the 2 quick trivia bits I had for you guys.
Awesome.
Next category is IMDb Deep Dive. And for this, I will throw it to Connor first. And I'm also very curious to see if we had any overlapping ones with this. I feel like we tend to kind of, again, similar wavelengths, but I wanted to hear from you first.
So I did not go too crazy on this one, but I found one name. His performance stood out to me. And when I couldn't find him on the cast list, I was a little confused. did a little further of a deep dive and found that Spike Jonze went uncredited in his role as Alan. Completely random that he's in this movie. He does not do very much acting at all, but he's such a cool dude. He's got such an incredible career, Spike Jonze. He did a ton of Beastie Boys music videos, a ton of music video directing in general, a bunch of Kanye music videos. He's one of the original creators of Jackass alongside Johnny Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine. And then he went on to direct really well acclaimed movies, Being John Malkovich in 99 and then Her in 2013. Both were nominated for Oscars. And he actually won for Best Original Screenplay for Her in 2013. So, I mean, a completely random stepfather role, sandals inside with his pants. Just a random little cameo there. I'm sure he had to have been friends with someone on the crew to have gotten in there for his one scene.
Great pull, Spike. Is it Jones? Jonesy? How do we say his last name?
I think it's Jones.
Spike Jonze.
Jonesy?
It's just spelled. It's spelled with a Z-E or something instead of like normal.
I see his name and I just automatically associate him to Her because I remember when, like you were saying, when that movie came out and it was like up for all these awards. I just remember hearing his name a lot, but I had no idea what this guy looked like. I would just associate his name with the look of Joaquin Phoenix, with him starring in that movie. And so I really didn't know who he was. So then doing the deep dive or doing a look at everything. And I saw that name pop out. I was like, Spike Jonze. I'm like, I didn't know he was in this. I didn't know he acted. But great.
Yeah, right around the same time that he won the Oscar for Her, he also acted in, was it Bad Grandpa? Was the Johnny Knoxville where he's dressed up as the old man?
Yeah.
Spike Jonze dresses up as an old woman in that movie. Has a couple scenes in that absolutely wild that is just like right at the same time as him getting an Oscar for best original screenplay. He's also like dressed up as an old woman who's having her dress ripped off in the street and having a bunch of people react to that. Wild man.
Seems like it. How about you, Val? Got anything for IMDb deep dive?
So I just have one very tiny thing, and it's about Karis Dorsey, who plays Casey Beane, Billy Beane's daughter. And when I saw her, I was like, she looks so familiar. I was like, what is she been in? And upon looking, she's actually in a couple episodes of Mad Men. Which you guys, I can't even believe that I haven't brought up Mad Men on this podcast yet. Like, I haven't found a way to weave it in. Here's my chance. Here's my little Mad Men shout out. She was in a couple episodes as the friend of Sally Draper, who's Don Draper's daughter. But she had a very, very minor part, and she was like barely in it. She was like a Juilliard prodigy in Mad Men. But yeah, Mad Men, great show. If anyone hasn't watched it, you already know them. Watch it.
Here's your free Mad Men's free plug from Val.
Yeah, it's the best show. But that's all I had for that.
Very good. Yeah, I have one main one and then two quick little mentions that I want to throw out there. I just thought were interesting that I came across. But the first two are Nick Perazzo, who played Jeremy Giambi. He looked kind of familiar, but also I think I just remember him with this movie a lot, and he reminds me of Joe Latrulio. Like, he looks like he could be like his brother or something. And so I'm like, I wonder what this guy's also been in. I haven't seen him in other things. And on his IMDb page, this is the only thing listed. There's literally nothing else. Not like a small film, a commercial, a TV show. Usually these people kind of do guest spots or little things. Like, they used to do like short films or something. There's nothing. There's one thing, and it is this movie, and I couldn't find anything else about him. And that was it.
Hired purely by the looks.
Literally, they probably saw him on the street like, that guy. Get him. He can play Jeremy Giambi. Not even the more known Jason Giambi. We need him for his little brother, Jeremy. And then my second honorable mention was Gerardo Salasco, who played Carlos Pena. And real quick, like, he was just one of the filler baseball guys. I mean, Carlos Pena is obviously a real person, but one of the kind of background people playing him. And he was, I think, Brad Pitt or Jonah Hill's character pulled him in to tell him that he's being traded. I think it might have been Jonah Hill's first person that he told was getting traded. So it was literally like, I think his only speaking scene. He sits down, says a couple words, and he's gone. But that actor in real life is married to Jennifer Morrison, who was one of the main characters in Once Upon a Time. She was Emma Swan. So it was Jennifer Goodwin and Jennifer Morrison were the two leads in that. So I thought that was randomly interesting because I did not know about this guy at all. And then my main deep dive is the actor Glenn Morshower. Immediately picked him out and saw, I think we use the term a lot, that guy. He was definitely that
One
guy.
of the scouts?
Yeah, he was one of the scouts. And he was always in the scouting scenes. And I think only in one of them, though, did he actually have like one or two lines or really quick little sentences. And I instantly recognized him. So I was looking up his, filmography and everything. And he's done tons of movies and TV shows. And I did notice he's, besides like this and a few things, vast majority of his roles are like he's always in the military or some kind of position like that. Like he was in 24 and he played a Secret Service agent. He was in the very first Transformers movie. He was Colonel Sharp, and they brought him back as a different character in the latter, like I think 3 more Transformers movies, and he was billed as General Morshower. And then he also appeared in properties such as Star Trek, Godzilla, Pearl Harbor, Black Hawk Down, X-Men First Class, and like all those, he was some type of military personnel, which he has the look. He always has
General, Major.
Yeah, literally. The look, the voice, everything. So he was my deep dive, and he stuck out to me for this movie.
Definitely an all-time that guy.
Sure.
I couldn't even put a name to the face when you first said it, but I scrolled through his IMDb, and it is all military rank after military rank, all the way back to the 90s.
Our next category is optimal viewing experience. So for this, as usual, what to you guys is the best way to watch this movie? And I'll kick this one off. I absolutely loved my first experience with this. And this is such a great theater movie. I feel like just because of, it's more of a, it's a drama. It's more of one of those critically acclaimed ones that you want that kind of experience. I'm kind of torn though, because I'm so used to watching at home in the comfort of my own home that I almost want to say at home's better, but I can definitely say definitely not a drive-in movie. And if it isn't me reliving my first movie theater experience with this movie, I think I'd prefer at home currently as my favorite kind of viewing experience. But like I'm watching this movie at night. It's a movie night. All the lights are off. I can focus on it. Not like a Saturday 1-2 p.m. viewing. Like this is like a Saturday night 7-8 p.m. I'm turning this movie on. How about you, Val? What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, like I mentioned, I've only seen it the one time and I just watched it, but after kind of getting the vibe of the movie, I do think either like alone or with like 1 or 2 other people, and like you said, where you're really just kind of like actually locking in. Like people are watching it, people are paying attention. You turn off the lights, whatever. Like I think that, but I'm also kind of torn because I'm like, I would have liked to see it in theaters too. This would be a good theater experience. So yeah, I'm kind of between the two where I think this would be a really good movie to watch in theaters. But again, I didn't have the chance to. So I'm also kind of like, okay, like watching it by yourself or with another person, like where you're really locking in, I think would be a good alternative.
I've only ever seen this one at home, and I was going to ask you, I feel like this had to have been an incredible theater viewing. Just the sounds in this movie.
Yes.
It'll go completely silent, and then you just hear the crack of the bat, and there's just so much really cool sound. The score. If they do a 15-year anniversary screening, I'm 100% going to the theaters to see this one. I normally am not a watch on my laptop with headphones kind of movie person, but that's how I watched this the other night. And I was a little bummed out hearing some of the really good sound effects in this movie. I was like, shoot, I kind of wish I was like blasting this one on the TV.
Right.
Or watching it in the theater.
Right. That's a great point about that first experience with the sound. The sound design with this movie is incredible. And it's definitely, that's something I tagged in my notes to discuss later too. So I'll bring it back up. But like you said, I think you might have mentioned that like the crack of the bat and just like certain ways they use sound and lack of sound in this movie. When I think about that experience, me seeing it, I almost have like an out of body memory, like you viewing yourself, like watching yourself watching this movie. That's what I envisioned in my head. and just like kind of like in a partially empty theater, because it was technically a matinee showing. It was like 4 p.m. and it was like a Sunday, so maybe it was a little slower. But I just remember like not many people being in the theater, but it kind of added to the experience, and kind of being able to sit with the movie and really get engrossed into it, and letting all that sound or lack of sound just kind of sit with you and being present in that and getting lost in that. So yeah, no, really was a very memorable first experience. And I know Val mentioned earlier about those movies that sit with you and inspire you and make you feel a certain way. This is definitely one of those ones that I walked out and I was like kind of in like a haze, like, whoa, like I just witnessed something really phenomenal, and this is going to stick with me for a long time. Our next category is describe a movie plot poorly. So this is a one-sentence description of the movie. You have a lot of creative freedom with it, but it can be the worst description possible if you choose to go that route. I will go first with this one. What I prepared for my movie description is a recent college graduate gets purchased by a failed pro baseball player to help a baseball team to change their losing ways, and ultimately fails.
I like it.
That was it.
I actually took a similar route to that. I said an awkward new grad from Yale University who nobody cares about is used for his talent to bring fame and fortune to the Oakland A's and their GM.
Nice. I took a similar route to that, focusing on Jonah Hill's character. I have a recent Yale graduate attempts to change the game of baseball using math to influence a desperate general manager.
I like it. We all were on the same wavelength.
We were close there. We were all close.
I was like trying to be a little different than my normal ones because I was inspired by Val's. Usually we'll take a really unique approach and pick like a character's perspective. And I'm like, oh, maybe, I'll be different from what I do and be different from them. But nope, we are all on the same wavelength.
We were synced up on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And next up, we have our category for favorite quote. So I don't know what you guys have for favorite quotes, but we will kick it off to Val.
So I have a few different ones here. I think like I have a couple like silly ones, and then I have a couple of like serious ones. So I'll start with the serious ones. I like it's kind of towards the beginning of the movie, but when Billy is explaining to the scouting team kind of like what the current problem is at hand, I feel like it really sums up the kind of the whole movie in a really clean way without it sounding too like obvious. That he says the problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams, then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. It's an unfair game. So nice little like shout out to the title of the book. With the unfair game piece of that quote. True. I also feel like it's not like funny, but like I feel like Brad Pitt delivers it in kind of like a snarky, funny way. Sure. And yeah, it really like it's like a very clear like quote that just like kind of sums up the movie in a lot of ways. So I thought that was really good. And that I kind of enjoyed that one from like a serious end. And then I had a couple others that were just like kind of stupid and funny. One was when Billy is talking to Pete and he's asking him how many people he researched. I don't really know what the right word is, but he goes, how many did you do? And then Pete goes 47. And then Billy's like, okay. And then Pete's like, actually 51. I don't know why I lied just now. And I feel like that's like weirdly like such a relatable thing for me, at least. Like when I get like anxious or nervous, like I'll like accidentally like have like a very like unnecessary like very trivial lie like that, and it's like I feel like it's so relatable for like just showing like how anxious he was, and it was just funny. He's just like, I don't know why I lied.
And he lies for no reason and then admits he lied.
Yeah, he like immediately fesses up. So that was funny. And then lastly, I also thought another Billy and Pete interaction is when Billy says, would you rather get a bullet to the head or 5 to the chest and bleed to death? And Pete goes, are those my only 2 options? that also made me laugh a little bit. So that was I'll leave it at that just because I have some more, but I feel like you guys might have some overlap, so I'm good there.
How about you, Connor? What do you got?
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
That's a fire quote.
Yeah, it's so good. Mm-hmm. And when it was mentioned just before the end scene, it was phrased a little differently. And I was like, wait, that's not how I remembered it. And
Mhm.
then there's the scene where they watch the minor league player hit his homer,
For sure.
and that's where he delivers the "How can you not be
Mhm.
romantic about baseball?" It's
Mhm.
so perfect. And again, another great quote that just sums up the whole movie.
Mhm.
That's my number one. I did have a couple other quotes that I wanted to shout out. Um, in one of the flashback scenes with young Billy, the scout and coaches are at his house offering him the deal, and they say, "We're all told at some point in time that we can no longer play a children's game. We just don't know when that's going to be. Some of us are told when we're 18, some of us are told at 40, but we are all told." And that one kind of resonated. And Matthew, I wonder if you felt the same way, as we are two individuals who have torn major ligaments after the age of 18 playing children's games.
Mhm.
I think that one hit particularly hard.
Yeah.
Kind of wish I was just told at 18, like, stick with
Yeah.
tennis and golf, kid.
While you're
Don't
ahead.
go tear your ACL.
Do not play club rugby in college. Don't do it.
Yeah, mistakes.
Yeah.
And my last quote is when he's talking to his daughter, and his daughter expresses concern that he's going to get fired, and he says, "Don't go on the internet or watch TV or read newspapers or talk to people."
I had that one too. I love that quote.
Great advice all around for just anything.
Great advice. Great advice.
So I know this is our favorite quote section, but you bring up some really good points I kind of want to expand upon for a second. The first just being individuals that have torn major ligaments, both of us tearing our ACLs over the years, and just, the whole thing about kind of that very poignant quote about father time, and also I think reaching a point in your life where some people have to give up on their dreams. And not that me and you really gave up on our dreams of being athletes or
weren't
anything like that.
going pro, but
Yeah, that was never in the cards for us, I don't think. But definitely, like, watching this movie, like combining that with thinking about, they're talking about David Justice's age at one point, and they mentioned being like an aging veteran, and they talk about him being 36, and I'm like, 36 for a normal person is so young. And I'm 32 now. So this dude is like grandfather age in Major League Baseball terms and pro sports terms. And I'm like, they're viewing this 36-year-old so old. I'm like, I feel old. And I now feel that I'm at that age where I'm watching pro athletes play on TV. And it's like, oh, like, he's on his last legs. He's going to be retiring. And he's like, he's 30 years old. And I'm like, Jesus.
yeah, he's the same age as you when you're saying this guy's old and
I'm
washed.
watching a bunch of like 17-year-olds go out and like do these crazy things, getting paid millions of dollars. And then it just makes me feel so old. But yeah, that really hit hard, and just makes me think back of like playing rec soccer over the recent years and just feeling time pass me by in real time. Like, I can remember going back to rec soccer at 26, being in good shape, playing pretty well and everything, and then had to take a little bit of a break because of COVID, and then came back and only being like 28, 29, but being like late 20s versus technically mid 20s, and playing against a lot of people that are like 22 to 25. And not that I would play bad, but they were always just a step quicker than me. I could feel slowing just a little bit, not being able to do the same things they once was able to do. And I feel like that quote really highlights like that experience for me. Like, now seeing this movie gives me a different experience, uniquely, weirdly enough, from when I first saw it at 17 to when I probably watched it when I was 25 to now at 32 watching it. It's like those 15 years, and those kind of jumping like 5 to 7 years at a time, really gives you a different perspective kind of on life.
That's how I feel like that's a good point again with a lot of movies. It's like when you watch movies at different periods in your life, like, you can get such a different message out of them. And it's like actually incredible. Like, certain movies that like are my favorite movie, it's like when I watched them for the first time, like, I did not get the same message out of it. I didn't understand certain things, or I just saw things in a different light. So that's a really great point about just how yeah, like your own life experiences like really change the way that you view a film and how you kind of like have an experience with it.
Yeah, you're seeing the movie through different characters' eyes, different perspectives based on where you are. So
pretty much.
Watching a movie when you're a child, you're seeing it through the perspective of the child in that movie. And jump 15, 20 years later, and you're seeing the eyes through the adults in the film.
Right. And yeah, to kind of tack on to both you are saying too, and kind of what I was getting at earlier, like seeing this at 17, I had, quote unquote, my whole life ahead of me. Not that I don't. I'm still obviously very young in the grand scheme of things. But, I'm right before college, and you have these visions of the future for what you're going to do, and et cetera. And, I had these career aspirations. Maybe I'll be a general manager of a sports team one day. And then at my mid-20s, I might have identified more with the athletes because I was getting active again and playing in rec sports leagues and all this stuff. And you're kind of in your quote unquote career. And then now at 32, to prep for this movie a couple days ago.
You're a grizzled scout at this
point. I get paid a lot of money to manage a franchise, though. But to prep for this movie, the song that his daughter Casey sings pops in my head, and I love her rendition of it. It's like perfect for the mood of this movie. And I'm like, I'll throw it on Spotify while I'm doing some things around that. So I'm like, I'll throw it out on Spotify and listen to this while I am prepping my baby's nursery, as we're expecting twins in 2 to 3 months. And I'm folding baby onesies, listening to the song that is Brad Pitt's character's daughter singing this. So Brad Pitt, the father, is listening to his daughter sing this, and I'm now listening to this as an expecting father, and it like struck a different chord with me. I was like,
Yeah.
this is like, I'm not a father yet, but I'm going to be, and I will soon have that special connection with my kids. And I got it watching this the first time and the 20th time that Brad Pitt ultimately stays back in Oakland to be close with his daughter. At least that's what they kind of, imply. And I'm like, now I'm like, oh shit, I really get that. Like, you're going to have a kid and family's everything. And it resonated differently this time, hearing that song and watching this movie. It's really interesting, kind of having those 7-year jumps and viewing it through a different lens each time.
I'm glad to hear your perspective on that, because I wrote down, I'm neither a father nor a daughter, and that scene brought a tear into my eye. So I was curious what your guys' experience was with that song when she's singing it in his radio and he's choking up driving. I mean, that's an emotional scene. I love that.
Yeah, I'm definitely a happy crier, where it's like, I'm not these days currently like a huge crier, but like with movies where it's like a happy crying moment, that will really struck a chord with me, and it might make me kind of like well up a little bit. And so that scene always did that, but this time it felt different listening to that music.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. I'm like, wow, like it hit me in the moment.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
crazy. You're different. So yeah, it's different.
Thank
You've changed.
you. What do you mean by different?
You've unlocked
changed.
a new perspective to this movie.
Yeah, so great quotes. Any other quotes before I jump into mine?
I actually do have one more. It was just like a stupid little line that I liked and thought was funny. It was Chad was talking to Billy, and he was just like letting him know how grateful he was for the experience and whatever. And he just goes, "Sir, I just want to let you know that I'll be praying for you and your family." And Billy just goes, "No problem."
No problem.
I was like, that's like, he just didn't know what to say. He just goes, "No problem."
It's funny you bring that up too, for a different reason, because I started watching this movie alone, and then my wife came home probably a little past midway, and we like literally like 2 minutes before the scene came up, she's like, has the scene happened where he cuts the one player? And I go, and it's that scene. I was like, oh no, not yet. She's like, when that comes up, you have to skip it. She's like, I cannot watch it. She's like, I feel so bad for him. And I literally remembered from memory and quoted how he like says that he's praying for Billy every day, and I'm like, oh my god, it crushed me every time.
He was so sweet.
Yeah.
I know. I hated watching any of them get cut, because it's like, these are not they're like such humble, like they're portrayed as such humble guys, and it's like these are not like assholes, like super famous like sports celebrities. It's like they're really just like humble guys, and like, for sure. I felt like I felt the same way about like when they go to Chris Pratt, what's his name? Scott. When they go to Scott's house, and I feel the same way. Like when they left, and like he like just goes over and like hugs his wife and kid. Like I was like, wait, why am I crying?
Yeah,
I was just so sweet.
Yeah, we focus a lot on like the mega superstars, like the LeBron Jameses and the Derek Jeters and those people we see. And yes, they go through the career, they have hardships. They, their career comes to an end. That's difficult in its own right. But a lot of these guys, I feel like they covered with this movie, like those characters you were just talking about. A lot of those fringe guys that are, yes, they're pro athletes,
The
But
99% of pro athletes.
right, yeah, and it's like, but they're going between, minors and the majors. Are they playing? Are they not playing? The time they are in the pros, they're getting probably the minimum
Mhm.
wage contracts. Even though it's a substantial amount of money, you're still, you're probably not making that on that contract for very long. Because you're getting at, Connor, a lot of these guys don't spend much time in the majors, and for those dudes, this is their life, and they've worked so hard for it, and they fought for years and years through
Mhm.
hardship, through injuries, through whatever, to kind of go up and down those levels. And then for us to watch those, very intimate personal moments of them kind of having their dreams dashed in a way,
Mhm.
and for these dudes too, we kind of know that they're older and have gone through stuff. They're getting sent down, and they probably are meant, they probably end up feeling disposable in this moments. It,
Yeah.
kind of using the phrase again, hits a different chord, it resonates differently seeing these guys really go through those moments, and it hits a different emotional chord for us. But yeah, definitely. We did skip over that scene. We could not watch that.
I know.
So yeah,
It's
we had
so
to skip that.
sad.
Yeah. But you guys covered a lot of really good quotes that I had mentioned, so I'm really glad you said those. So I wasn't just reading off a massive list of stuff. But I think, yeah, I had a couple favorites. I think it's hard not to be romantic about baseball. Truly is like the number one quote in this movie, which is why I included it in my synopsis at the beginning.
Mhm.
Some other ones I liked. So honorable mention was Billy Beane just being a terrible, like, motivational speaker, terrible at pep talks. He walks in and talks to the team. I think after, I don't know if it was right before right after the trades, maybe right before the trades, they're struggling, and he just walks in and says to the team, "You may not look like a winning team, but you are one. So play like one tonight." And that was it. And they all just kind of stared at him. They're like, "What?" And he just leaves, and they're all just confused. And then that was my honorable mention. And then I also had when in the first scouting meeting featuring Peter Brand, Jonah Hill's character, and Billy Beane just keeps snapping at Jonah Hill to talk. And at first he doesn't know, he doesn't realize supposed to talk, and he gets the gist of it. And then Beane or Brad Pitt says, "Do I care if it's a walk or a hit, Pete?" And then Peter goes, "You do not." And then he's just going back and forth with him. And then my other one that I'll use as my favorite, since the romantic about baseball was used, was Billy Beane talking to Scott Hatterberg, kind of when they're in the sequence where they're really trying to train him up, build up his confidence. They're talking like in the clubhouse, and he's getting like coffee and something to drink. And Beane goes, "What's your biggest fear?" Just randomly asks this. And Hatterberg is like, "A baseball being hit in my general direction." And I think Beane laughs and looks at him and realizes that he's being dead serious. And then the conversation kind of awkwardly ends. And then something else I wanted to just mention is not a favor or anything, but it really just randomly stuck out to me. I know Connor had mentioned a quote between Beane and his daughter, and there was a scene where Beane goes to gets to see his daughter off on a flight, and she's asking him, I think, about like or I think it's what you mentioned, the quote about like, don't read anything, and she's really worried about him and everything, and he just says, "You're getting on an airplane, and those things crash all the time." Just says that to his
All the
daughter.
time.
And if you place when that quote theoretically would have happened, it would have been the 2002 mid 2002 season. So you're not even a year after 9/11, and he's
Yeah, that's a
making an airplane crashing
wild.
joke. I'm like,
That's actually
holy
wild.
shit. Yeah. But yeah, those were I think those are my top ones for quotes that I wanted to throw out there. And then I know usually with quotes we will do a subsection of vernacular. So any quotes, phrases, words, things from this movie that have stuck with us that we use in our day-to-day use, or even to a lesser extension, quote often. So I don't know if you guys have anything for the vernacular. I guess we'll start with Connor this time.
I couldn't come across anything in watching it. There's nothing that I use in a day-to-day or weekly basis, so I'm not gonna pretend like I say, how can how can you not be romantic about baseball every day?
Yeah.
But no, and I know this was your first time watching this movie, Vale. So was there anything for you, Matthew, that stands out that you use all the time?
So I was saying, but with you, it's not a movie where it's like stuff that enters your vernacular, your lexicon. But the one thing I do say from this movie is I just use Moneyball, like that term, a lot, because it gets used with like sabermetrics, like interchangeably with that, and like advanced analysis and how people like do a lot of things nowadays. So I know that, their movement on the A's, them actually doing this, they did it and they popularized it with a lot of other teams across all various, sports leagues. Um, but just when I use Moneyball to describe when anyone's ever trying to like nickel and dime anything, trying to take a shortcut. And I use it a lot because, you and I, Connor, are in Buffalo Bills territory in Rochester, New York. And so you get a lot of Bills fans and you get a lot of discourse all over the map just about how they're managed. And so I use Moneyball a lot when talking about the way they run their organization, the way that their general manager coincidentally also
picked up a new wide receiver 4.
Yeah,
that's Moneyball.
Literally, and all the time I talk to my dad about this and complaining with him that they need to do things differently, and I just say how they Moneyball things. I'm like, they're nickel and diming. Instead of signing a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2, it's like, let's sign 3 wide receiver 4s because we think we can make them up in the aggregate. And it's like, no, you can't. They're not going to do anything. This Moneyball works in some regards, but not in this regard. And I think this is something I'll mention later too that I plan on. But I use Moneyball a lot. Just talk when people like nickel and dime things. Instead of going for the big thing, they try to get a couple little things to build up to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that I think
also that's Brandon Beane, Billy Beane, not related, but
I have a plan
making it work.
that is in my notes, and I will be bringing that back up.
Okay.
But yeah, Moneyball I think is really the only thing that's entered the vernacular in any form.
Okay.
And I'm assuming, Val, you have nothing that you've picked up from this movie in your 2 days since watching these regularly.
That is correct.
Yeah. All right. After vernacular, we have best use of music. So, just various songs, things that pop up that really stick out to us in this movie. I will start this one off. I'm guessing there's going to be overlap with this. So I'll try to keep it kind of brief. But the 3 songs that really stuck out to me were The Show, which we've talked about already, that his daughter did a cover of, that is by Australian singer Lenka. There was also Give Up the Funk by Parliament, which was played in the scene where Jeremy Giambi is dancing to it in the clubhouse after yet another loss. And Brad Pitt comes in and just smashes the speaker with a baseball bat. That was a good needle drop there. And then I also had the Mighty Rio Grande by This Will Destroy You, which I did not know this was an actual song. I thought it was just a score composition. It's the kind of theme, the tune we hear a lot that kind of solemnly plays in the background, and it plays at very important moments. And I actually wanted to discuss this too. So I think The Show sticks out the most to me, and I always think about that with this movie, but I think what's like resonates with me more, and I think is so perfect for this movie, and also I hear this and I automatically am brought back to this movie, is the Mighty Rio Grande, which it's played when Peter Brand first shows up to the A's organization, and you see him walking through the tunnels and going to work. And I think it's the first time you really get it. And you get it all these moments that are like big change moments within the movie. There is, cuts in, like I think the other part too that they play it, that it really builds up to me, or is featured prominently, is in the end in the game where they're trying to complete their 20-game win streak, and the other team comes back and it's all tied up and the tension builds, and you see the sound cutting in and out, and when they do play music, it's this song, and it's always used at a moment of like I said, some big change, something monumental, something really impactful, important is happening. And I think that would be my best use of music would be the Mighty Rio Grande. That really sticks out to me the most.
That's interesting. I did not know that was a song. I had I put the score as my choice for best use of music, attributing that as part of the score. So I did not know that was an individual track. I'm now wondering what the score was, because I had taken some notes about the score from the movie.
Right. Yeah. And the song is 11 minutes on Spotify, by the way.
Wow. I'm going to be listening to that later.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, just the composer was Michael Dana, who was not nominated for this movie, but went on to win the Oscar 2 years later for Best Original Score for The Life of Pi.
Oh, okay.
So this whole time throughout my notes, I thought that that track you were talking about was this composer.
Sorry to undercut you there.
No, that's fine.
How about you, Val?
So I also probably would say that the show is that would be like the best use of music in my opinion. I think it was like again, I did not consider that same as Connor. I did not consider the other song that you
Mhm.
referred to as music. I kind of thought of that more or as a
Mhm.
song. Thought of it more as the score. But yeah, I think both really great. I would probably lean a little bit more towards the show just because it being like a sweet
Mhm.
sentimental moment between him and his daughter and kind of like helping him make his decision of like where he was going to go, what he was going to do.
Mhm.
So I definitely lean towards that. But just overall, like watching this movie, I like it was very very quiet and it like that
Yes.
like stood out to me in a lot of like basically I at first I thought maybe it's like maybe it's just starting out quiet, like maybe it'll pick up later because like I was kind of envisioning um base what I was saying earlier when I first started is that it was not what I expected. I think I expected it to be like a snappier, a louder, quicker. Like I think I expected something a little bit closer to like The Big
Mhm.
Short or something along those lines. So I was like a little bit almost like shocked at how like quiet it was.
Mhm.
And I feel like there was like virtually no music other than that song that you said Matthew
Yeah.
played. It all the other songs that play are like actual songs playing in the
Mhm.
movie. So like
Mhm.
there's no real like background music to like help the movie move along. And at first I'm thinking like, well, I feel like the music and the score is kind of lacking. I was like the movie is too quiet. I was like thinking I feel like it needs more music to keep it moving. But then I kept watching and like after I sat with it for a little bit after watching the movie, I was like, I feel like, okay, like I get it. Like it helped let certain moments shine and we
Yes.
didn't almost need distractions. Like
Mhm.
I was so like invested in the story that I almost didn't really need to have back-to-back songs to like help it move
Yeah.
along. So just overall, just a different style. And I was like almost like conflicted with like how I felt about it as I was
Mhm.
watching. I was like, where's the music?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Mhm.
it was so different than other movies that we have covered previously because we've done a lot of comedies and like
Mhm.
obviously comedies use like music to keep
Absolutely.
their movies moving.
Mhm.
And yeah, this was just a very very different vibe in a lot of different ways. So I was almost conflicted, but I landed on I liked it.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that too, and I'll plug this now because I had it kind of planned to do this in like the open discussion at the end, but I think it's a really good time to slide it in. The use of music is very intentional in this movie, as is use of sound or lack of sound. And something that I kind of mentioned in my notes, like typed it, kind of typed up, or part I typed up, was in particular like the scene or the sequence about the streak. Like they're winning their 20 games, they're building this momentum, like kind of mentioned a minute ago, about them. They're about to win this 20th game. Brad Pitt turns around at the behest of his daughter and ex-wife to go back, and then he thinks he jinxed them. And the other team comes back from an 11-0 deficit and ties it up. And he's like, oh my God, we've blown it. I've blown it. And in that scene, I think they really intentionally and effectively use sound in it by, it's a baseball game. Obviously, the sport, there's gonna be tensions, gonna be drama, but it's a much more slower paced game than normal. And in this movie in general, too, is also just about math. It's about and advanced analytics and sabermetrics. And I feel like, you think with a movie that would theoretically be boring about baseball and math, that they would use music to pump up, ratchet things up, get that pace
Mhm.
going, move things
Yeah.
forward. Like you were saying, get you invested. Like, oh, let's play a fun song behind a boring scene. Then you trick the mind psychologically into thinking that it's exciting. And they kind of do the opposite. And they do a lot of the excitement and intrigue and interest, engagement with like building tension. And I kind of noted during that specific scene, as I was watching it, they kept going back and forth, like toggling between it's silent and all you see is the field. And the field's also not backlit. So it's just the field. You don't see the crowd and it's focused on that field
Mhm.
action. And then it'll toggle in a little bit of the score of the Mighty Rio Grande that I was talking about. That song will tune in and then it'll fade out and there's no sound. And then only the crowd noise kind of comes in and it kind of toggles back and forth and it weirdly builds up that tension. And then even talking back to what Connor said earlier, when Hatterberg hits the home run to win and you hear only the crack of the bat. That's the only sound. You're building this tension and then it comes to like a penultimate moment and it hits that crack and it sends off, and then everything fades in after that. The crowd, the cheering, the players, the score, the music, all that comes in.
Brad Pitt turning and looking quick.
Yes, him looking at the camera. Like, it was so effectively used, and you would think they would do it in the opposite way for a movie literally about baseball and math. As a baseball fan and as a hater of math, I can say those are two of the most boring things ever, but they use it so effectively in the opposite way.
Yeah, that I completely agree. I think it really just like makes the scene more dramatic, and like that's what we're looking for.
That's what
So
you need. You need tension
yeah,
and drama.
I really, really, really loved that.
Is it bad that I didn't know the show was a real song? I thought it was an
years,
original that his daughter wrote for him in the movie.
For 2026? So for 15 years, I thought that was a show. I thought that was a song that her character had written, and was like, oh, I write music, and here, listen to this, Dad. I had no idea as well.
The only reason why I knew was because I have never seen this movie and I've heard that song. So I was like, it must have been like either this movie made that song and made it popular, or it's just a song that I already knew. So I have one more like random note on the music.
Yeah, go for it.
I wouldn't say that this is like a best use of music in any way. But I do think that there's one clip that they show when fans are entering the stadium and Don't Stop Believing is like vaguely playing on the speakers. And I feel like that like really perfectly like captures the feeling of like going into a live sporting event. And it's like, I do not like sports, but the feeling of like entering into like a live sporting event, it's like all these people are here together to do the same thing. They're with their friends, they're with their families. And it's just it's a really, really good feeling. And I feel like that quick little scene that they showed like perfectly encapsulated it. So I just want to shout that out as well.
For sure. Next up, we have favorite scene. And Connor, if you wanted to kick us off for what your favorite scene of the movie was.
So I have a couple, but the number one is the streak. The streak leading up to that home run is just unbelievable. There's been a lot of rocky moments throughout this movie, the losing streak, a lot of the inner turmoil between the coach and the scouts and whatnot. But just seeing everything click and that nice little montage, that win streak, right up until that, like, I think the best moment in the movie is that home run. That's my number one favorite. I also wanted to shout out the first time we're in the scout room. Those guys are just hilarious. We've mentioned it a few times already. There's one comment that's made where he says, we're not selling jeans. We're not looking for Fabio. And then like 2 minutes later, you hear that old scout go, who's Fabio?
And then I think someone's like, I think he plays for Seattle.
That's amazing. And then we talked about it earlier, just the kind of heartbreaking moments of cutting a player. The flip side of that coin is how electric the scene is where they're wheeling and dealing with the other GMs.
Yes.
Like that's such a high, that's such an energy moment. They're doing the fist pumping and they're handing the phones back and forth to each other. It's just a great energy. And then the reality is they're shipping a player that they've been with for months across the country.
Right.
They're moving human beings around. So, I mean, it's that tough flip side of that. Those are my big three, but I gotta give the gold to that home run.
How about you, Val?
I have the same thing. I love the montage of like real clips that come in like as they start winning more and as they start like building on that streak. And then basically Scott hitting the home run, leading to breaking that record. And I just love on his face, like he's so he's surprised himself. He surprised everyone. He was so nervous leading up to that too. And I love it. He's cheering there. Everyone's cheering. His teammates are tackling him. Like that's my favorite scene. And I also think it's the best scene as well.
Right. It's funny you mentioned all those scenes. So I had all those on my short list. The first, like going into doing the categories even before watching it, I had already like pre-noted that the first scouting meeting is always just a great scene. These old white dudes being so out of touch and making off the wall comments and just straight up judging people off of like nothing. Like the one guy was saying that someone had an ugly girlfriend, and an ugly
No
girlfriend means no
confidence.
confidence. And
Insane.
it's like, for sure people think this way, and they definitely do. And I even can say as myself, like the amount of times that I like try to predict what college quarterbacks are going to be great in the NFL, and times that I think they're just going to suck because they have a terrible football sounding name. Like they just have like the most like German sounding name. Like he'll never be famous with that
The name, the look, the way they
Yes.
throw, their
Exactly.
hair.
Literally, I get judged by all these small little things that make you super biased and overlook, skill and talent and efficiency, which I guess is the heart of sabermetrics and what they get after this movie. So you overlook those biases. Yeah, I had similar things on my short list. I think the best scene, like you said, Val, is the streak. Like everything about that, what you've both said about that is so good. Some other notes I had about that scene too that I wanted to mention. Besides like the use of sound and what I was talking about before, I realized that this was like the true climax of the movie, which is weird because the movie is very subversive in a lot of ways. And one of it is it's not your traditional sports movie where it's like, we're going to play for the championship. We're going to do this thing or do that thing. It's like, we're going to reinvent how we scout and set up a team. And our goal is kind of to win. But what ends up being the underlying goal is like to legitimize our method of doing things and to show like what we did, like had an impact and like did something. Sticking to your own convictions and believing in yourself. And part of what I loved about that scene, like Val was getting out of Scott with Hatterberg hitting the home run and being nervous and everything. I think it's such a perfect penultimate scene for all the things we've discussed, but also because the person who hit the game-winning record-breaking home run was Scott Hatterberg, who was at the center of their experiment of this project. We're going to Moneyball and nickel and dime our way to build this team, do that. And three of their top people included Scott Hatterberg. He was the biggest, chance or risk that they took. Okay, he's at the end of his career. He has nerve damage. No one wants him, but he gets on base, but he can't field. He's also never played first base, but we're going to make him play first base. People are like, are you fucking crazy? And I think it was so poetic that he was the guy that did this. Everything about the scene, I think, was really perfect. And now that I've gone on this, diatribe about that scene, I'll say what I think still is my favorite scene and always stuck out to me is the scene where it's like Connor was saying, the wheeling and dealing scene where Billy and Peter are just making trades, making things that I think part of that too is what kind of inspired kind of my previous interest in like one day being a general manager, just like that energy, everything's going on. And I love their dynamic in that scene too. You can tell Peter Brand, Jonah Hill's character, is like really getting more comfortable in his role and probably feels more like the team and everything, because the whole movie he's like dressed in like a sweater and underneath it he has like a button up. And this is the first scene where he doesn't have that, where it's just the button up and it's unbuttoned at the top and there's no sweater over it, and he's wearing Oakland Athletics hat. So you tell he's really settling into his role and everything, and they're just going back and forth and like, kind of like on that vibe together. And I love, Peter, when he's on the phone with Shapiro, he's like raising his fist, like, kind of like slowly does that to celebrate. And then it's Peter's turn to make a deal. He just slowly raises his fist and like raises his hand and closes his fist like this.
Yeah.
He's just like in such like a nerdy, awkward way and like trying to imitate Brad Pitt's character. And they awkwardly like high five like together and get in that rhythm. Everything about the energy of that scene. It's a big turning point for the movie and for their experiment. And they're really just going kind of like all in and taking a chance on their vision and their their project that they're doing. So everything about the scene I just absolutely loved for years. Next up, we have Aged Like Milk versus Aged Like Wine. And this category, as usual, is our rewatchable shout out, podcast that we all love. And for this category, we talk about what aged the worst or like milk and what aged the best like wine. And for milk, Connor, want to kick us off?
Yeah, for Aged Like Milk for Moneyball, I put down the accuracy. This movie took a lot of creative liberties. I'm okay with it. This movie's fantastic. But there was a couple things that didn't necessarily age super well. Several people spoke up, fairly unhappy with their portrayals, specifically Art Howe was not happy with the portrayal done by Philip Seymour Hoffman. Get over it. He's one of the best actors of all time, and he got to play you in a movie. And then David Justice was also not happy with how he was portrayed and how he was speaking to the GM. Some of it was addressed with cut material. For example, Beane was remarried, and they actually shot scenes with his second wife, but that material was cut. You can see him wearing the wedding ring in some scenes. And they just kind of completely cut out his relationship, made him the single father, or, divorced father, which at this point in time, he was remarried, as was his spouse. And then another thing I came across in research I thought was kind of interesting was the Jonah Hill character, Peter Brand, in the movie. He's based off of real life GM Paul DiPodesto, who joined the Athletics from Cleveland, not in 2002, but in 1999. So he had been with the team for a few years prior to this season that is mostly shown in this movie. So there's just a handful of things that they took some creative liberties, and some people took issue with that. But like I said, this movie holds up beautifully. It's an amazing story, and who cares?
All right. How about you, Val?
So I just kind of one thing that stood out to me throughout the movie is that there are virtually no women in the entire movie, and Connor, you kind of just touched on it. I guess there was supposed to be more roles or more scenes with a woman, and she was just completely cut out. And I'm not I didn't really look into this too much, so I'm not necessarily critiquing the movie per se, just because this is literally what happened and it's based on a true story, and there weren't a lot of women in sports at the time, specifically
there were none
baseball,
on the Athletics that year.
Yeah, so it's maybe not as it's a slight critique of the movie, just knowing that they definitely I'm positive that there were influential women roles in the lives and the stories, and they really only touched on his ex-wife and his daughter, and they were both in it for maybe a collective 2 minutes. So I was just after looking at it, it's watching the movie, it was damn, there's barely, there's a couple secretaries, assistants who serve them stuff. That was pretty much it.
Dog.
Yeah. So that definitely stood out to me. But again, like I kind of mentioned, it's a little bit more of a critique of just the real life lack of women in sports careers. And I think we've come a long way. So overall, I do think that maybe didn't age great just in general. I think today we see so many more women as reporters, announcers, just in the background careers and everything. So I think, it was just a little unusual to see a movie with so little women with meaningful parts.
No, that's a good point. I think you're saying, I wonder if this instance, if it was just a matter of the story just being so hyper focused on the team, and that maybe in reality there weren't women in certain positions. But I also have heard, I'm pretty sure it's been a common critique of Sorkin's before, and I'm a big fan of Sorkin's writing, but I've heard though that oftentimes in his scripts and his stories, it's heavily male focused, and he leaves out female characters, or they don't have a lot to do. I'm trying to remember what the term is maybe the Bechdel test, when you have when it's does it pass the Bechdel test, where are any scenes featuring women that only have women in it, are they, when it's only women in the scene, are they talking about anything that isn't about other men? It's always focused on on the men. And in this, there aren't even any all women scenes. There's such few female characters, like you guys had pointed out accurately. So I have heard that critique of Sorkin before.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Sorkin is The Social Network, right?
Correct.
I feel that that's a similar kind of vibe there too. But yeah, I think I don't know if it's necessarily just the story, because I haven't read the book, or if it's just the actual the movie. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it stood out to me.
Don't forget Denise, who delivered them coffee for 10 seconds on screen and Fenway at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, a big moment for her. So I want to tack on some stuff to what you guys said before I dive into mine. There were a good chunk of inaccuracies, like Connor was mentioning, and as I'm sure as we all have understood with movies, especially that are based on true stories, you got to take a lot of creative license. It's hard to get everything down right, And two, a lot of real life stories are pretty boring. So to beef it up, to make it engaging
Mhm.
and fun, exciting, build drama and tension and conflict, you gotta fib, you gotta lie. That being said, to kind of go on to what Connor mentioned as well, a lot of the player movements, the timelines weren't super accurate. In my research, Jeremy Giambi, he came to the A's 2 years before that he did in the movie, and he actually overlapped with his brother Jason Giambi, who was the big star that left, one of the three people in the beginning of the movie, so they overlapped for 2 years. Chad Bradford, the pitcher with unconventional, like under kind of the deep throw, he
Mhm.
was already with the team. The Giambi and Pena trades did not occur at the same time. Via the real life Scott Hatterberg, manager Art Howe was actually supportive of him playing versus the conflict they had there where he was pushing against Hatterberg playing in the movie. Besides that, the movie also excluded a lot of prominent players on the A's roster, which I didn't really realize some of these dudes were on that roster because I knew of
Mhm.
these names being somewhat of a baseball fan over the years. And, because the movie didn't mention it, I didn't realize they were even on the team because 2002 was about 2 years before I started paying attention to baseball. The '04 season was the first year I really was aware of people and teams and became a Red
Oh,
Sox
why
fan.
was that?
Go Red Sox. I do have a lot of family in Boston, so I will say that. I mean, it was the worst. It would have been a weird time to bandwagon because they were going on 86 years of a curse of not winning a World Series. It just happened. That's when they won. But yeah, so at the time, the film excluded big players like Eric Chavez, Miguel Tejada. Chavez, who was a 6-time Gold Glove winner, two
Mhm.
Silver Slugger in that year, so really had a great year in '02, and he was totally omitted from the movie. Miguel Tejada is a household name that I had known for years. He was a 6-time All-Star, and he was actually the 2002 American League MVP. He was
Mhm.
their section of the league's MVP that year, and just not even in there. And there was a couple notable pitchers that were left out that I guess played big parts in their success. One being Barry Zito, another dude I had heard of, 3-time All-Star, 2002 AL Cy Young winner, and AL wins leader. So guys just like having career years, great careers at that time. The film kind of left out, and I understand there's reasons for it, but all those names were left out there.
Yeah, they had an
Um,
iconic bullpen, and
yeah,
that wasn't mentioned at all. The focus was on Bradford as a relief pitcher, and it's like, well, they
mhm,
had probably one of the best pitching groups in a decade in all
right,
of baseball, and that just went unmentioned in the movie.
exactly. And a few other little things that stood out to me that kind of bugged me a little bit. But in the movie, Brad Pitt explicitly says he's 44 years old. In real life in '02 in that season, Billy Beane was 39. And I'm guessing they aged him up because Pitt was older. Because during the filming of that movie, Pitt was 48. So they essentially, I think, split the difference. So I can see why. But I thought that was interesting. They kind of played with their ages. Also, when I was doing some research, um, they say David Justice is 36. Like a reporter or voiceover, someone says he's 36 in this movie. He was actually 35. And then he turns 36 at the very beginning of like that season or right at the beginning. Um, and in real life. But during the batting cage scene where Billy goes to
Yes,
talk to David, he says he's 37.
yeah.
And so I'm like, why did they finagle these things a little bit? I'm like, maybe they aged him up a little just to make him seem even older and like, you know what I mean? To build things up a little bit.
I wonder if at any point this movie was supposed to span over a few years. Because, like I said, Jonah
Mhm.
Hill's character, who he was based off of, came over in '99.
Right.
Giambi had been there for a couple years before. The ages are kind of messy and
Mhm.
muddy over the different scenes, not really with a continuity of how old certain players are. I really wonder if at one point the story was meant to span a couple years, a couple seasons, as opposed to focusing on just one.
Right. Well, that's a good
Or
point.
they just condensed it all in the writer's room.
Right. Very true. Yeah, I want to tag that on to what you guys had mentioned, but for my own personal age like milk, I had two quick things. The first being the Cleveland Indians name, no longer the Indians, also a
Mhm.
term that they're like, we should not name a professional sports franchise this, so that they are currently the Cleveland Guardians. And then my second thing was in the scene where Billy goes to see his ex-wife and her new husband and pick up his daughter. She's out with friends temporarily. They mentioned oh, she called me on her cell phone to let me know she's come up the hill. And he goes, she's got a cell phone? A 12-year-old? He's like, huh? He's like all confused. And in 2002, that's honestly insane for a lot of people to have cell phones.
Yeah.
But by now, everyone fucking has a cell phone. I remember got my first track phone when I was 12. Didn't get my first like texting enabled cell phone until I was in the 9th grade. But I like my sister had a like back in the day when they had NV. She had NV in like the 4th grade and she was 10. So kids having cell phones age very poorly in my mind.
Yeah, I feel like
Definitely.
12, having a cell phone at 12 in 2002, like you said, that's crazy.
Right.
That's like, yeah, they must be like filthy rich or something.
I mean,
I guess
it looked like it.
Did you see his
Yeah.
house? Yeah, I noticed. His house is
Yeah.
insane.
It's very peaceful.
I
Yeah,
wonder
yeah.
what they do. It's massive and it's like super nice. Connor, why don't you start us off with wine then?
I only wrote 2 words down, and I'm wondering if either of you have the same thing. Brad Pitt.
Knew it.
That's not what I was gonna
That's
say.
not what you put.
Ooh.
Okay.
No.
I did not have it
He-
either, but I agree though.
I
He
agree, too,
doesn't
but that's-
look a day
He looks
older
great.
than this movie. This
Mhm.
movie was 15 years ago, and he literally looks no different in age than he did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was still even a couple years ago.
Yeah.
The man is not aging lately, and
He's in his 60s
I
now.
don't really know what
Impressive.
else to say.
Yeah. Good job, Brad Pitt.
I actually disagree in the sense that I think he is aging. He's just aging well.
Yeah.
Like it's not, to me, it looks
Fair.
like he is getting older. He's just
Almost
coming
like
into
wine.
his age. Exactly.
One would say.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, but you said it doesn't look like he's aged. Now I
That's
disagree.
true. I did
He
say
looks
that.
like he's aged. He looks older. He
But he looks
definitely looks old to me, but he looks good for an old guy.
True.
Mhm.
AKA aged like wine. But that's actually funny that you said that, because I was gonna say either Chris Pratt / Chris Pratt's career. Like, I think his career, out of anyone like Brad Pitt was already super
He's already Brad
famous.
Pitt, yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like Philip Seymour Hoffman already super famous. Like, I feel like a lot of the people a lot of the other people weren't really like stars to begin with. Like, they were just kind of like brought in for this movie.
Mhm.
Was it Robin Wright is his ex-wife?
yep,
Like,
yep.
she was obviously already
Already
super
star.
famous, whatever. Chris Pratt, this is very early in
True.
his career. And yeah, his career absolutely took off after this
Mhm.
movie. I don't have like the years or anything like down. And I also think physically he aged like wine as well. So I feel like Chris Pratt ×2 for me.
Yeah, he goes off. I think Guardians 1 and
3
2
years
is
after.
2014 and 15.
15, 17.
Oh, 15,
Or, sorry,
17.
14, 17.
14, 17. And then right around there was also the Jurassic Park,
Yeah,
or
that's
Jurassic
15.
World movies. He really did have like a massive explosion in the 5-6 years following this movie.
Yeah, because
And I kind of hope he gets a little bit more back on track.
Yeah.
Mercy came out not too long ago. That didn't look amazing.
does not look good at all.
The last couple haven't looked that
Him sitting
great,
in a
but
chair.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. He was when they filmed this, they probably had wrapped season 3 of Parks, and when it was released, they were probably beginning season 4. So he's in his Parks groove, but he's not
Mhm.
doing much like film wise, and I feel like dramatically.
Yeah.
So it's probably, that's a good point, Val. It's probably his first like real true dramatic role in a big meaningful movie.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think he had a
Really
small
took it.
part in Wanted, which was maybe a year or two before this. Very just small bit parts. He's like the friend in a rom-com that I can't remember. And
Delivery
Right.
Man. He was the friend
Okay.
with Vince Vaughn.
Oh
which
yeah.
was, I think, right around the same time as well.
Yeah, I think it came out just like a year or two after this, but yeah, it's like right there.
That's a good one. He
Yeah.
definitely has aged like wine.
Mhm. And I'll tag on too with that. Jonah Hill. He was already super bad, some other stuff, but like he really a lot of dramatic acting chops validation.
For sure.
With this role, and then getting the Oscar nomination, really showed a lot of people what he was capable of. And then already famous, like you're saying, I think a step ahead of where Chris Pratt was at this point, but then followed a similar trajectory where they started getting more of these serious, bigger roles too.
Yeah.
So I had a couple quick things for wine. Sports analytics. I know a big part of this movie is talking about introducing sabermetrics, and then at the end they talk about that this really carried over to the Red Sox, and they started doing this. This would help them break the curse of the Bambino 2 years later. But sports analytics everywhere. It's what everyone's
Mhm.
using. All the new GMs, you have all these young upstart guys that are using analytics, coaching. Even when you watch like ESPN and like certain sports talk shows stuff now, you had your typical stats, but it comes to like especially and like baseball's very stat heavy, stat driven sport. But it comes to like football. You have like EPA, like expected production over average, like all this random shit that I don't remember as a kid.
Mhm.
That since since this movie released, not even like when sabermetrics first implemented, but in the last 15 years, like I see these random stats and analytics everywhere, and it's driving a lot of acquisitions and moves and all this kind of stuff. So I think sports analytics ages the best for me. That is like everywhere now in the sports world. Our next category is the Chicken Tennies Award.
I'm gonna run a train on these chicken fingers.
And for this, it is a bit, trope, one-liner, or really anything that always hits, always slaps, is always great for us. And I have quite a bit for this. So I'm going to throw it to you guys first. So I'll kind of come up on the end of this. But Val, what do you have for your Chicken Tennies Award?
Okay, I have a few. So my number one Chicken Tendies award winner is an underdog story. I've said this before. I love an underdog story. I think it plays within the sports genre of movies like perfectly. I love it. That's my favorite. It gets me hype every single time. So that's definitely the winner, but then I have a couple honorable mentions. One being the goofy new husband. I think that there's always a goofy new husband who the protagonist is usually the ex-husband that like we're following, and it's like this goofy guy he's always just saying something awkward. He's in this case he's soft spoken, he's got sandals, like it's just
Very granola.
yeah. I love it. It's always funny every time, and it's always like an unexpected partner for the ex-wife too. So I always think that one's really funny. And then another one is kind of just the idea of like whether it's like old people or traditional people just kind of being like almost appalled when you do something differently than the traditional way. And I'm referring to specifically like Billy trying to like change things up, and when he's talking to the scouting team and they're all just kind of like, whoa, like this is not how we've always done it, whatever. It's that always kind of gets me when like old people are just like baffled about things.
We're changing the game.
Really. What do you mean
Yeah.
you can do it differently?
Exactly. They're always like, wait, that's not how we've done it.
Yeah.
So, and then lastly, which I might be stepping on you guys on this one, but
No worries.
Brad Pitt, always eating. He's always eating. He's basically has food in his mouth in every single movie that he makes. So, yeah, that's what I had.
Yep, I had the snacking on camera is one of my favorites. He's famous for it, probably the best example for it. And I was doing a little bit of research to see who else is kind of known for that. Two names popped up. One I was familiar with, Robert Downey Jr. We haven't gotten to any of the Iron Mans yet, but you will see, Vale. He's often snacking on something through the Avengers movies and his solo movies as well. And the other name that came up on a couple lists was Chris Pratt. And I think that specifically has to do with Parks and Rec as opposed to any movies he's in. But he was always snacking on something in Parks and Rec, munching on something. There's the famous scene where he ate like 12 racks of ribs and like didn't use the spit bucket at all, just kept housing ribs. But yeah, snacking on camera. It's one of my favorites.
Love that. So I have a litany of things, and then I'll give you my winner. But some quick ones are using characters as human calculators, aka Peter Brand in this. Just Brad Pitt constantly pointing at him and him rattling off stats and doing calculations. Always think that
they're like, is that right?
Yeah. And then just never question him. I have using real life sports commentators and personalities. This one is a little different because it is like based on a real story, and they're using, because I know like Scott Van Pelt on ESPN, he had a voiceover. Bob Costas, long time with NBC, covered tons of different sports and events. His voiceover is used too, so I'm guessing these are real life, actually audio of their commentary from back when this was happening. But when it's more of a fictional story, and they use these, it's a great way to kind of validate or legitimize kind of these things and make it feel more real. And for this, I love that they included those real stuff, as you'll see these a lot of real footage. So I really like when movies do that. Besides that, I had a lot of general themes, kind of what Val had mentioned too, but like underdogs, outsiders, going against tradition, having a vision and sticking with it. and like, a band of misfits. So like in this Beane, more so Peter Brand and all the new A's players, all these people unwanted. I think he literally says the island of misfit toys is what Peter Brand labels them. And so I love when you kind of have those tropes and things in movies. And then my final two are characters getting mad just kind of randomly or quickly. And in this, Billy Beane, Brad Pitt does it a ton, where he throws a chair out of an office and breaks a window. He flips a desk after he learns that painting is starting again. He interrupts players having fun in the locker room after another loss by smashing the speaker with a baseball bat and throwing the Gatorade cooler. Like him just having these little outbursts and just leaving. That's a great trope for me. And then my true winner, which you both have said, and we've talked about this separate outside of this podcast before, is Brad Pitt just eating and absolutely housing food. And so I kept a tally of all the stuff he ate in this, and I hope it's accurate. But he is eating peanuts off or something similar off of the Cleveland GM's desk. Like he scoops a handful and just throws it into his mouth during that scene. He not eating, but eats. He is chewing tobacco in two different scenes, and he's spitting in a cup, which is a very baseball pro athlete thing to do. So I love that they had that in there. Him eating food that was put out for him in another scene. I think it was when they visited Scott Hatterberg. His wife puts out something. Billy eats ice cream with his daughter. He eats popcorn out of a coffee filter on his desk at one point. I think when they're making all the trades, he's drinking beer in a couple scenes at his home. And then my absolute personal favorite Brad Pitt eating scene of all time is him eating a Twinkie in his office. And he takes one bite, thinks for a second, and then he just houses the rest and just smashes it into his face. And as to commemorate that thing in my Chicken Tendies Award winner, which I think is the Chicken Tendies Award winner for this episode, since we've all said it, is I will try to house a Twinkie, which is a lot smaller than I remember, on the podcast. And so if people don't watch this on video, you're just going to hear a lot of crinkling and maybe me eating something. So apologies if you don't like ASMR whatsoever. I don't, but here we go. So I'm going to, now I don't know if I want to do this, but we're going to take a bite and then see if I could just eat the rest of the second bite. Because I think he did like a third of it. And then 2/3. All right, here we go.
You got this.
Not bad.
Just like him.
Man of many talents. I don't know how he does it. My wife's going to be disgusted by this, but I gotta do it.
He didn't use the spit bucket. You can't either.
The second bite was big, though. He did shove it in there, and he walks off, so we don't even know how much he ate of it, but
he swallowed it whole.
Yeah. Brad Pitt can do anything. All right. So I think the Chicken Tendies Award winner is Brad Pitt eating. We love it.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Next category or next award is the Augie Farks Award. And as we've done in previous episodes, this award goes to the best character name or just an all-around great character name that we love. And what did you guys have? What did you have, Connor?
I only had two for this one. One, I'm not going to laugh right in the guy's face. It's a real person. Art Howe. I think it's just such a baseball coach, baseball manager name.
Absolutely.
He looked the part, though he didn't look like the original, the real Art Howe. But shout out, this guy is from Pittsburgh and then played on the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 70s.
Wow.
Before he became a coach and manager.
Double thing there to add on to that. So he, from Pittsburgh, played for Pittsburgh, like you were saying, where Val is now. And then the actor who played him, Philip Seymour Hoffman, is where we're all from, Rochester, New York.
Rochester.
He's from Fairport. Wanted to work that in somehow.
No, glad you did. The other name is, I've already mentioned this character earlier in a different category. Spike Jonze's stepfather character is Alan, but Alan is spelled where the second A has an accent over it.
Ridiculous.
I don't know if that's a typo on IMDb or if it was a weird character choice for an uncredited character, but I kind of want to give my nomination for Augie Farks to Alan with the accent. Did you guys have any other names?
What'd you have, Al?
Okay, so again, this is a real person, so don't want to be like absolutely violating this person.
Don't laugh in their face.
But Chad Bradford that's gotta be like
Chad
maybe
Brad.
one of the douchiest names I've ever heard in my entire life.
I'll be praying for you and your family.
But yes, to that point, he was portrayed as such a sweet guy, so don't really want to like violate him too much just because he seemed like a really sweet guy. So not really fitting for him, but maybe just like fitting for just like baseball players, athletes in general. Like literally calling someone a Chad is like kind of an insult.
Or a Brad.
Or
His
a Brad.
name aged poorly.
Yeah, so yeah, Chad Bradford, his name did not age well because now that's like a big like social media joke to just like call someone a Chad or a Brad. So, which is kind of funny because I know some Chads and Brads and they're really nice and they're not Chads and Brads.
They are
So,
beating the stereotype.
yes. So yeah, Chad Bradford I feel like is kind of like the ultimate douchebag name. I also really like Billy Beane's name. I feel like it's a very solid like baseball GM name or even just like any sports management name. Like I feel like it like matches him. It's like a fun, like snappy name. And then like to the contrary, Peter Brand is a very bland, generic, fitting name for an econ nerd from Yale.
Yeah.
So I feel like those are very fitting names.
Love all those. I had those as well. I didn't put Alan on there, but I did. My short list is Billy Beane. Like you said, great sports name. Could definitely be a GM name. We have Brandon Beane in the NFL now, so that, rings differently nowadays. Great alliteration. I think alliteration works really well with sports names and with sports and superhero names. You have alliteration. It's always good. Also at Art Howe, all-time great type of sports name. It just fits so perfectly. I think the name Art is always just good for an older sports type of person.
Just a hard-nosed, no nonsense.
Literally, exactly. I had David Justice. That is just a great name. And like a guy that was like known as like a good player. Seems like he's a pretty cool dude. That's very fitting. Just last name Justice. And then my fourth was Scott Hatterberg. And I know it's not, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't point that one out, but something about Hatterberg, like that, the way it flows, the way it sounds, I really like it. And the fact that they shorten his name, they nickname him Hattie, like that is a great name to nickname. Like, and I know like being in sports, you need a name that could be nicknamed. You need some play on there so people can call you a shorthand. If you blow up, in popularity, you have a nickname. So I love Hattie in there. But if I had to pick one, I think I might pick Art Howe. I think it just works really well. And I feel like my number two would be Hatterberg, just because you can call him, his nickname's Hattie.
No, those are good.
After Augie Farks, we have hot takes. I don't know if you guys have any hot takes for this one. Do you have any hot takes, Val?
I do. I have one hot take, and I know it's a hot take because I've never heard anyone share this opinion with me. But I don't like Philip Seymour Hoffman at all. I have not enjoyed his role in anything that I've ever seen him in. And
not Scotty J.
No.
What movie said again?
Boogie Nights.
Boogie
That's
Nights.
Okay.
I'm absolutely like repulsed by him in Boogie Nights. Maybe I should cut this out. I'm like,
leave it. You got to leave it.
I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I really do not like him as an actor. I don't know anything about him as a person. But I just feel like everything he's in, he either creeps me out or it's underwhelming. And
you're feeling something from his performance. That's a good actor.
I disagree because
he's one of the best character actors of all time, and he's from Rochester. You can't be besmirching him.
I'm besmirching him.
You're besmirching hard right now.
He's the best villain in any Mission Impossible movie.
Villain.
Mission Impossible 3 sends chills down my spine.
I
just watched Talented Mr. Ripley. He plays Freddy. He's a freak in that. He's hilarious.
He was really good in the first Twister.
Yep. All those mashed potatoes on his plate.
I think he's a phenomenal actor. But also I disagree with you, Connor, that by making someone feel something from your performance doesn't mean you're necessarily good, because you could just be mad at someone for being so bad at acting too.
Well, that's true. That's fair. That's just not my experience with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah,
obviously, this is subjective.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm not a fan, and It's definitely a hot take because I've
Great take.
literally never met anyone who has felt that way about him as well. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should have
He's one
kept
of
it
the
to
most
myself.
widely celebrated actors of all time.
I know. That's why this is a hot take.
You were right. You were right. You were gonna make me mad with your hot take. You told me that off
Yes,
air, and
I
I was
did.
like, "There's no way that I'm gonna get mad," and I'm mad.
Now I'm
I
mad.
knew you were gonna get mad. I was like, this is a personal attack against Connor.
So Connor, what do you got for your hot take? If that's Val's, now that you're all riled up.
I don't really have anything too hot. I kind of just wanted to float this one out there for you guys. Is this the best acting job Brad Pitt has ever done in a movie? And I wrote down a few other movies that his performances really stand out in. Fight Club, Seven, Inglourious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are just some of his most attention he's gotten as far as in awards or working with great directors. Is there any movie that you can think of that he has a better performance in than his performance as Billy Beane in Moneyball?
I actually feel like all of the performances that you said are better than his performance in
Really?
Moneyball. I liked Moneyball, don't get me wrong, like I enjoyed it, but his acting has wowed me so much in other roles more than this. I think this is, and it's not his fault. I think this is just more of like an understated like
Yeah.
role.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fair.
like it's almost like he's working with what the story is.
I don't think he has much
I
to do.
think yeah, I was gonna say there's
That's fair.
not much. There
He
wasn't
didn't get
much
to go kill Nazis.
exactly. Yeah, so it's like how can you ever go up against that? Yeah, no, I think literally every single role that you said, I think he had a better, more creative acting
Mm-hmm.
performance.
Okay, fair.
I agree with that. With you said, Val. I absolutely love him in this movie, and I think he does a great job. But as we were saying, it's more of an understated performance. He doesn't have to do a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And he's playing
He
a real
ate an
person.
awful lot.
he ate a lot. Yeah.
Drives like a madman every time he's behind the wheel.
Literally just zooming around, screeching all over the place.
No, that's fair. That's fair. He doesn't. I definitely didn't have as much to do as Fight Club or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that's fair. I just kind of wanted to float it out there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hot take.
Good hot take. Went a little bit of a different route, not acting wise, kind of tangential. But my hot take is that sabermetrics and statistical analysis are great, but ultimately aren't the best way to go. As a sports fan, I think they've helped modernize sports a lot and help teams, find hidden gems and overlook biases they might have, and by, kind of using just the more objective numbers approach. But as you see with the movie, though, you can only get so far with sabermetrics. The Red Sox did use it to win a World Series a couple years later, but they also had probably the second biggest payroll in baseball, I'm guessing, at the time. They had a lot of true stars that also were super good, efficient players. Teams now to liken the Beane GMs, the Buffalo Bills try to Moneyball. Like I said before, in my discussion with my dad, they try to Moneyball and it doesn't work. Whether that's sabermetrics or not, but I just don't think I think sabermetrics are great, but I don't think they're all they're cracked up to be in the end all be all.
Yeah, it's a tool more so than, and I think for a little bit of time in the early 2000s, it was being treated like this AI force of like, we have to do with this what it says. It's a tool. It's giving you suggestions, and you can, apply other bits of information as well and make an informed decision. You don't have to just abide by it so strictly. So yeah, I guess it's definitely not, if it was that easy, everyone would do it. That was said in this movie. If it was, just down to spreadsheets, everyone would be doing that. So there's definitely a lot more that comes into making these decisions.
Mm-hmm. After that, we have the Paul Rudd category. So one of our shared favorite actors and people of all time. How would we fit Paul Rudd into this movie? I'll go first. I really could only think of one thing, because I don't really think he fits into this movie in many ways, and I love him. He'd feel kind of out of place because it's such a somber, serious movie. I just had he could be switch in for Pitt's ex-wife's new husband. He could just kind of be a little jokey and unserious unintentionally, and just kind of fit in. I feel like he could pull off granola or just weird if he wanted to. So I just have him be a different Alan, basically. I saw you nodding, Val. What do you?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would do too. I feel like I literally cannot see him in any other role in this. I cannot see him as a baseball player. I agree.
What do you, Connor?
I've got a different one. I went a very different direction with Paul Rudd in this movie. Given that it's a little more serious, it's a drama. I have him in for Mike Magnetti, the player with the knee braces, who Billy Beane demotes to the minor league to make room for Rincon in the locker room. That very emotional,
Right.
we didn't cut you, we're bumping you down to the minors scene.
Mm-hmm.
Dark-haired guy, he's strapping the knee braces on himself, being like, oh, we're working on some stuff. I'm going to be better the second half of the season. Really emotionally charged, like 35-second scene. Throw Paul Rudd in there. Maybe lighten it up a little bit.
It would have to be a young Paul Rudd. I feel like
Yeah.
it couldn't
Yeah.
be.
Might
It
have
would
been a
have to
little
be
too old.
like.
I think that guy was an older player.
Yeah, but still, it would need to be like a younger looking
Yeah,
Paul Rudd
that's fair.
because I feel like Paul Rudd in his current age just is so comedy to me that like it would never work. Like it has to be like before he got super famous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was the same year as Our Idiot Brother, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Damn it, yeah, bearded, long hair, bearded Paul Rudd.
Drive-in double feature. What movie would we pair with this with Moneyball at a drive-in? What about you, Val?
I wrote down two different options for this one. One being The Big Short. This is another kind of like data-driven decision-making type of movie. Also, with it's fast-paced. And it's also based on another book written by the same author of this, Michael Lewis. He also wrote The Big Short. So I feel like, which is kind of funny that this guy wrote two books about very dry topics that turned into two amazing movies that everybody
both
loves.
feature Brad Pitt.
So yeah, so The Big Short, I feel like, and then I also think The Social Network, I feel like, again, just like another fast-paced, like Aaron Sorkin, smart dialogue that I think that could work as well. But I'm leaning towards The Big Short.
Yeah.
Nice. I thought of The Big Short, and I do like that as a choice. So it's funny you mentioned Social Network, too, because the score, or at least that track that you mentioned, reminds me a little bit of the score from Social Network. But I went on the theme of baseball and watching this movie first and then kind of having a bit of a palate cleanser with The Sandlot. So we kind of end on the emotional heavy note and then we go have some fun with the kids in the 50s or 60s and just kind of have a carefree, lightened mood after Moneyball.
Like this choice a lot. I had only one idea for this one that was Social Network. I was wondering, Connor, like you had said, do I go something that offsets this movie a little bit? Because like I said before, it's somber, it's more serious. Even though they don't accomplish their goal of winning a World Series title in one regard, it still kind of ends on a high. Like they did the thing, they had some success, they proved to people it can be done. But like doing something more lighthearted and happier and funnier, or something to kind of offset it. But I just kept coming back to The Social Network, and like Val said, also written by Sorkin, came out a year prior to this. Same feel, based on a true story. And like you said too, with the score, it had a very similar sound to it. I feel like these would pair very nicely. But my one caveat or stipulation is if these were to be paired together, you'd have to do Moneyball second, because while I love Social Network, it is serious but kind of doesn't end on a high. It ends with Mark Zuckerberg constantly refreshing his page in a legal boardroom, seeing if his ex-girlfriend accepted his friend request, and his life kind of like goes well, but like in a way goes to shit. So it's like not the most positive movie for many reasons. So I feel like Moneyball would have to come second because there's a little bit of a positive note that ends on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, those are good choices for double features.
And then next is Popcorn Bucket. So if this movie were at the theaters and had a featured popcorn bucket sold at the theater, what would that popcorn bucket be or look like? What'd you have, Connor?
I only have one for this one, and I was picturing a very traditional popcorn bucket, but where it's printed as if it's wearing an Oakland Athletics jersey. Maybe instead of the red and white stripes, it's got the green and yellow stripes as like a undershirt style design. But basically just the jersey wrapped around a popcorn bucket.
Like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I have an upside down Oakland A's baseball hat that you like eat out of.
Nice.
I feel like
good.
that's the only thing I could
That's
think
good.
of. So I'm like, yeah, basically just like a plastic, like a hard plastic,
Like the ice cream
like-
ones at the stadium.
Yes,
Like a Dippin' Dot.
exactly.
I don't know why I
Yeah.
didn't think of that. That's a good idea.
That is a good one.
I could only think of one thing as well for this, and it was the bucket itself is the Oakland Athletics Stadium, the Oakland Coliseum. And maybe on the
nice.
inside, if they felt like spending money on their popcorn buckets, you could kind of have like the look of the field printed on the bottom, and maybe the sides had some stadium seating. And then the outside of the bucket would be the outside of the stadium, including the big player banners that they had on the
Yeah.
stadium. They
I
take
was
down in the
thinking of the
beginning.
banners.
But on each banner are the main cast members, like Pitt, Jonah Hill, Hoffman, all
I like
of them.
it.
I like that as well. Those are good ones.
Yeah, there wasn't
This
a
is
lot
the
to
first
do.
time we all did well on this one.
Yeah. Well, there weren't a lot of choices this movie. That didn't have as many creative choices, but we all came up with something good though. And then our last category is the mystery box category. So for this, host being me today can kind of pick whatever we want to discuss, whether it's a category, a question, and so on. I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
The first is, do you prefer Jonah Hill in a comedic or dramatic role?
That's a tough question. He's so good at both. That was actually something that I wanted to just like talk about in our open discussion is just like Jonah Hill's just such a good actor. Like he's so real in everything that he's in. I doesn't even feel like he's acting, whether he's in comedy or drama. Like it doesn't feel like he's acting. It just he's that good. That's a really tough one.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a terrific actor. Would like to see some more dramatic stuff out of him. The only thing I will say on that, for starters, is in these dramatic roles, he does bring so much humor.
He does.
To his performances.
That's a good point.
Even though he's not Seth from Superbad in this movie, he does still have some very funny mannerisms and some very funny one-liners, and his chemistry with Brad Pitt is very comedic in nature. I gotta lean comedy just because there's so many iconic one-liner moments of his in his early work with like Judd Apatow, 40-Year-Old Virgin with the boots with the I just want to get these home so I can wear them.
How can I buy these? How can I buy these right now?
The Russell Brand, okay, I'll just go fuck myself moment. Like there's so many moments in those early comedic movies that he's so funny, and I gotta lean comedy, but I would like to see him in more dramatic roles.
Yeah, no, I agree. I now that you say that, that's actually such a good point. Like even in like The Wolf of Wall Street, it's like his character is just like so extreme and crazy, but it's like it's funny. Yeah. It's like over the top, but like it's funny over the top. So like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't actually even know if I've seen him in anything where he's like where it's like he's not funny at all. Like he's always bringing. I mean, I'm sure he has roles like that. I just don't think I've seen him. So yeah,
more serious. Was it War Dogs?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, him and
again, he was
Miles
even
Teller.
funny and wacky in that one too.
Yeah. That's a good point. He great dramatic acting chops, obviously, by this movie and other movies, and he's very good in that regard. But great point that he does bring comedy, humor, a bit of levity to these serious roles, but also to the serious movie that needed a little bit of levity. Even though Brad Pitt can bring it at times, it's really them bouncing off each other, Jonah Hill reacting. And I paid attention a lot to him, or not intentionally, but just watching him because he's is one way, expressive and doing different things and a little more energetic in like movies like 21 Jump Street, which we already discussed. Where in this, when he's not talking, he's just so subdued and sitting there and he's kind of blank and he's like timid and almost trying to be like a fly on the wall because I'm sure he's not super confident. He's more of the nerdy guy and kind of using like literally in the first scene he pops up in Cleveland. Brad Pitt enters the room. You see a bunch of people. I noticed you don't see him when he first enters the room. And it's not until a minute later when they start asking the opinions of every scout in person. Then they cut to him. Oh, now we notice Jonah Hill, this guy in the background that no one's supposed to notice. So he's kind of the subdued background guy that isn't super expressive. But then when he does
Mhm.
talk, and his lines, even when he delivers them very dryly and matter of factly, they are very funny. So I think great both ways. I prefer him in a comedy, to answer my own question, just because I find
Okay.
him so funny no matter what.
Yeah.
Like we already talked about 21 Jump Street. I love him so much in that role that I think I just love seeing him in comedies. And then my part 2 for the open category for the mystery box is a second question. I know we've played around with the category before about kind of like a snobby film bro type of thing. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you have any snobby film bro takes or just critical opinions of the movie that you want to discuss, like whether it's just any elements of movie making, production, anything that maybe we didn't talk about you wanted to throw out there, or things we did talk about that you want to spend an extra minute discussing? And we'll go back to you, Glenn.
I love the young Billy story being intercut throughout this whole thing. I don't think we've mentioned that at all.
Yeah.
Just his experience being on the other side of things, him being scouted and being this, highly touted young player, being given a good contract, kind of being convinced out of going to college, following his journey through there, impressing everybody, and then just having a lackluster career where he kind of hops around a little bit. And then I believe he didn't stay in the league very long, and he retired as a player to become a scout,
Right.
which is a very unconventional move for a young player.
Yeah.
I think you overheard in one of the scenes. There's, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
Yes.
audio. I just really like that. I mean, the movie layers in a lot of different storytelling devices, like intercutting with a lot of the real footage of this 2002 season. Some like very dramatic lighting, like you said, where it's like front, or it's not backlit, so you're not
Mhm.
seeing the fans. It's like pitch black for like some slow mo. They really had a lot of fun with doing some different
For sure.
different styles of shooting, all intercut within maybe a 10-minute window of this movie. We have a flashback to the 70s or 80s of young Billy, and then there's real footage of these actual guys in 2002, and then you get Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill kind of laughing or watching a practice or something. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff going on, but it all just feels really smooth and keeps that movie rolling.
Definitely. But something that stood out to me on this rewatch was like this movie had like a tactileness to it. Like just obviously, you had Pitt eating a lot of food, but when he eats the Twinkie, you can hear the crinkling of the
Mm-hmm.
wrapper, the radio in the opening scene of Pitt in the empty stadium. And you just feel the lighting, the dimness, everything kind of sets in, hearing the crackle of the radio, him switching it on and off, him holding that prop. Um, Pitt in one scene gets mad and he's hitting his steering wheel, hitting the roof of his car. When he has a beer on the kitchen table, they uses props and all these things to kind of have this, like, I don't know, grounds it. There's like a feel to it. Just a general set design and lighting as well. When Pitt is eating and chewing tobacco and spitting into the cup, there's other props of like him carrying on pens and paper, and Jonah Hill's playing around with a Nerf football in his hand and he's moving around with that. Characters do a lot of like little hand gestures and movement and ticks. Like I said, with like Pitt, he's opening and closing his hand while he's sitting at the kitchen table making an important phone call. And in one scene too, Philip Seymour Hoffman, when he's rebuffed the first time mentioning his contract by Brad Pitt, and he walks off, and he's just kind of like, as he's stalking off, he has his hand down to his side, but he's like flexing it. You can tell he's angry. So all these little nuances and idiosyncrasies adds an extra layer to it and a feel to it that I feel like
Mm-hmm.
tactile is kind of the best word I could describe. But I like that element because you don't get a lot of those things a lot of the time. It had definitely a feel to it like the other movies don't have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And then
those are great observations, and I feel like they really just make the movie feel more realistic, like real
sure.
life.
Mhm.
Like all of those things
Mhm.
combined, like it makes it feel like you could actually see those things.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Especially like
immersive right in the beginning.
yeah, especially like when in the beginning when Billy is like sitting around with like the scouting team. I'm aware that not all of those guys are actors. I mean, obviously they're acting in this movie, but I think a lot of them are just like not really like super well-known actors, and like you can kind of feel it, but in a good way. Like it feels very real. So I really enjoy like kind of in combination to what you said, Matthew, like overall just like the really real feel of the movie.
Yeah. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to throw out there?
I have a suggestion for a new category before we wrap things up.
Shoot.
And I'm glad you already clarified that Hattenberg is Hattie, because I called this the Hattie Homer moment, for the moment that just gives you chills every time.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys experienced what I did, but when he hit that home run, I was covered in chills. I like it ran up both arms and right up my neck. I was like, whoa, literally paused the movie, wrote that down, went back a minute and replayed it again. And it's not going to apply for every movie, but I think we'll know. We'll know when there's a movie that just hits us and gives us those chills. It's for sure a chills moment. The Hattie Homer.
I like it.
I like it. Yeah. Anything else, guys?
I don't. That is all I've got. I know we went a little long today.
Great discussion. I appreciate you guys humoring me with one of my favorite movies.
Of course. No, it was fun.
Yeah. So that's all we have for today's episode. If you're listening, please give us a follow on our socials. You can find information about us on Instagram and soon to be Facebook and TikTok. And we'll be posting to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Popcorn in the Face. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you're following us on Instagram at Popcorn in the Face Pod for episode updates, behind the scenes content, and all of our movie opinions. New episodes will be available on Wednesdays on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, so be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss one. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.